Welcome to Excel Magic Trick number 1226. Hey, if you want to download this file, Excel Magic Trick 1226 to 1227, and follow along, click on the link below the video. We have an epic video here. We want to talk about comparing two lists and finding the items in one of the lists that are not in the other list. Now, I got two questions yesterday, both asking the same question in essence, but they had slightly different details. Here was one of the questions. I have two lists of people's name. One list is shorter than the other. I want to extract the names of people that are not on the shorter list. Now, the way we're going to solve this and the method we're going to use, it doesn't matter if one list is longer or shorter than the other. The concept is simple. We have this list right here, list 2 in this example, and we want to find the items in this list that are not over in the other list and extract them. Let's go over to the sheet 1226 email. Here's another question on the same day. Email addresses. Column 1 has 200 addresses, and I just have a few here for this example. Column 2 has 180. So in this one, there's more addresses in the first one. But the question is, of those listed in column 1, I want to find the 20 addresses in column 1 that are not in column 2. Now, the same exact solution is going to be used, but our question here is, please give me all the items from list 1 that are not in list 2. Now, I want to go back over to 1226 because we want to look at 3 different methods, and all 3 methods are really awesome and have their place and purpose. Then when we get over to the email one, I'll show you which one is my favorite. Now, the easiest method is simply to use the match function and then sort the list and copy and paste. And that's what most people do. Now, all of the solutions, method 1 will be the 3-step process. Method 2 will be an awesome advanced filter. And then method number 3 will actually be an array formula that you only want to use when you want the process to be automatic and dynamic, because it's the most complex. But all 3 solutions have one awesome function in common, the match function. The essence of comparing two lists always has to do with the match function. All right, so this first example, we're going to add a helper column. And here's what we're going to use. We're going to use the match. Now, the match function is a lookup function, but it does something special. If I say, hey, match, go look up chin, and that'll be a relative cell reference, comma, the lookup array is the table we want to look it up within. I'm going to hit the F4 key to lock that. Now, what match is doing is match is looking up chin over here. And match tells you the relative position. So when it looks up chin, 1, 2, 3, it will report 3 as the relative position. Now, I have to do comma, and I'm going to use 0 for exact match. Control Enter. There we go. There's the position. Double click and send it down. Gigi is in the first position. Joe is in the second position. But check this out. This is what we're interested in. NA is match saying, I couldn't find it. It was not available. Now, what we do next is we actually sort the helper column. So I'm going to click in one cell. And notice even when I have these labels at the top, I have empty cells all the way around because sorting is a data analysis feature that needs a proper data set. Field names at the top, empty cells all the way around. So I click in any one cell in the column I want to sort. And I'm doing Z to A, which brings the errors up to the top. And then I simply do step 3, which is to copy and paste. That's pretty cool. Now let's go look at another example. This is going to involve advanced filter. Now notice, if we wanted, we could actually use this very same formula down here in a helper column and then use advanced filter, because advanced filter can actually automatically take stuff and dump it somewhere else. But this trick is so awesome because you actually don't even have to add the helper column. The same formula that you would put right here and copy down just like we did in the example above, you actually put it in a separate cell and keep the cell above it empty, and then use that range as your criteria. So here it is, equals, and I'm going to start with the match just like we did before. Remember, we had to say, hey, is the first item relative cell reference in list 2, comma, are you over in our other table, F4, comma, 0, close parentheses. Now watch this. I'm going to copy this in edit mode and enter it there. And then I'm going to come over here in edit mode, Control V, Control Enter, and double click and send it down. What Advanced Filter will do when you have a formula criteria is it will take the formula and in memory copy it down as if it were a helper column. So what I did here is totally unnecessary. Now, while we have this here, this will not work because we're interested in the NA, and Advanced Filter will think that the numbers are trues. So we need to actually amend the formula and ask the question, is the result from match an NA? And the way you do that is with ISNA. That's a pretty smart name for this function. It says, hey, are you an NA? Now this formula with the ISNA wrapped around match will deliver a true or false. Only when it sees an ISNA will it give us the true. That will be the trigger for Advanced Filter to extract it. Now I'm going to delete this because remember, the beauty of Advanced Filter criteria with the formula is that it will copy the formula down that column in memory. Now notice the false because the very first one is false. But as we saw when we copied it down, we got a true there. Now click in a single cell. Go up to Data. Here's Advanced Filter. Now you can click on that, or you can use the keyboard in 2007 or later, Alt-A-Q. That opens up Advanced Filter. We do not want to filter. We want to copy to another location. It got the list range right because we have empty cells all the way around. And here's the beauty of Advanced Filter. I simply highlight the empty cell above the formula and the formula that Advanced Filter is going to copy down in memory. And then I say where I want it to copy to. I'm going to click over here. Now when I click OK, just like that. And now, if I were to change any of this, like I were to come over here and call this tummy, now we have a different situation. You can see the very first one here, chin is no longer in that list. And now when we invoke Advanced Filter again, Alt-A-Q, and I say copy to, click OK, and just like that, it got the results. Now that's sort of automatic, right? Something changed, and it totally updated it. But you do have to know to open up Advanced Filter. Now that's pretty cool, Advanced Filter. Now the next example we want to see is array formula. And this is going to get pretty complicated. And it's only when you want your source data to have somebody change something and then you don't do anything. The list just appears. That's when you use formulas. Now I'm going to call this something like extract names. Now, before we even start, I want to come over here and I'm going to highlight these two cells and right-click, and on the mini toolbar, use my Format Painter, and then click boop right there. Because before I create the array formula, I want to count how many items in list 2 that are not over in list 1. And the beauty is we can use that same ISNA, and then inside of ISNA match. Now remember, we want all of them. In our last formula, we click in the actual single cell. That's not going to work. Right here in lookup value, we're going to give it all of the list 2. That means we're doing a function argument array operation, and match will spit out many positions and NAs, and ISNA will evaluate it and give us many trues and falses. Now I'm actually going to lock this. Not that I'm going to copy it here, but I'm actually going to copy this whole formula element and use it in our array formula later when we're going to need to copy it. Comma, the lookup array, F4, comma, and then 0. Close parentheses. Now right now, if I were to highlight the match, remember, that was a function argument array operation right there because we gave it a bunch of answers. So now when we evaluate it with the F9 key, you can see it gives us exactly what we got when we did our helper column above. Control Z. Now I'm going to close this off. Highlight just to look, F9. There's our trues and falses. Now we need to add all those trues. Control Z. I'm going to use SUMPRODUCT. SUMPRODUCT can handle array operations without using Control Shift Enter. But guess what? SUMPRODUCT cannot see trues and falses, so I have to convert them to ones and zeros. And I'm going to do that with double negative. If I were to highlight that whole array and hit F9, there we have our numbers to add. Control Z. Now watch this. I'm going to copy this Control C in edit mode. Close parentheses on the SUMPRODUCT and enter. Now there is our count. Now I'm going to come over here and we're going to start our array formula. Now, equals index is a lookup function. And remember, I'm trying to get names from list 2 that are not over here. So I highlight the whole range and F4, comma. And now the row number. I'm going to need, it looks like 2, 3, 4, and then a 5, and then a 6, and then a 7. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to need to use, and I'm using an Excel 2010 or later function, aggregate. If you don't have 2010 or later, then you have to use the small function. Now the aggregate is beautiful because it'll handle array operations without Control Shift Enter. And look at that. One of the functions, the first argument function number 15 here is small, which is what we're going to need to use. In essence, we're going to use the small function to get the first relative position, second, and then third relative position. Comma. Options, we need to ignore errors because we're going to have a divide by 0 error. Comma. And then that's the array argument that can handle arrays. Now, I'm going to use this little part right here, Control V. But notice that this gives me, if I highlight this in F9, it just gives me trues and falses. I really need position 2, 5, and 7. So I'm actually going to have to, from this list, construct an array of relative positions, meaning 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then the trues and falses will extract from that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, the 2, the 5, and the 7. So Control Z. So right at the beginning, before ISNA, I'm going to open parentheses and say, hey, give me the row of this whole list. F4, close parentheses. Now, if I highlight the row part, that's going to give me 39, 40, etc. If I hit F9, you can see that's not what we want. Control Z. So from the row with a function argument array operation giving me all of the rows, I'm going to need to subtract row of the first one, F4, close parentheses. Now, if I were to highlight the row with all the rows minus the row of a single cell, F9, that first one where I get my 0 is 39 minus 39. So Control Z. I'm going to have to add 1 back in, plus 1, close parentheses. Now, in the book I wrote called Control Shift Enter Mastering Array Formulas, I actually do this formula in the aggregate and the index and show you how to use small. But we talk about this little formula element as usually the most robust way to create an array of relative positions like this. Now, if I highlight this and hit the F9, you can see now I have my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That is beautiful. Now I need to filter out to only get the 2, the 5, and the 7. Control Z. So I divide by that ISNA. That entire thing in the array argument of aggregate, when I hit F9, it gives me a filtered list of the relative positions of the items that are from list 2 that are not in list 1. 2. Oh, I guess it's 6, because Sue isn't there. I kept saying 5. So it's 6 and 7. All right, Control Z. Now I have to come and comma to get to the K, because the small function needs to know which of those relative positions, the first one, the second one, the third one. So I'm actually going to do another little formula element using the rows function. And I'm sitting in F39. So I'm going to say F $39 colon F39. This little formula element has the 39 locked here, but not the 39 here. So it's an expandable range. As I copy down, it will give me the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4. So now I have my K, close parentheses. That whole thing right there, can you believe it, is just going to give me a row number. If I hit F9, because I'm in the first position in this range I'm going to copy through, it gives me a 2. Control Z. Now, close parentheses. I don't need column number. Control Enter. Now watch this. I copy it down, and we'll get rid of those num errors in just a minute. But check this out. That whole gigantic aggregate is just a huge array formula when I F9 to give me the relative position to find the item in list 2 that is not in list 1. Control Z. Escape. Now I need to come up here, and I want to turn those nums off. Sometimes you'll see people use if error on huge array formulas like this. Don't do it. The reason why is if error, this value, has to run the huge array formula every single time to determine if there's an error or not. So in any case, when you have an alternative logical to test to determine when to either run the array formula or not run it, you use that. So we do have an alternative test. I'm going to say if, and I already have the little formula element. If the rows, right here, if 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, as I copy down, is greater than my count, and notice I can't get to that, so I'm going to click on that and down arrow, and then hit F4. So right now, anytime 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is greater than 3, well, that means I'm past the third row. So when I type a comma, the value, if true, is show nothing. That's double quote, double quote. That's the syntax in a formula to show nothing. Otherwise, the value, if false, is run the formula. The reason this is so efficient is because now we're running this in every cell. We do not have to run index in every cell like you would with if error. So when this comes out true, meaning we're past row 3, it's just going to dump this 0-length text string and show nothing and not run the formula. Now I can come to the end, close parentheses. And again, I don't have to use Control-Shift-Enter because I used aggregate. Control-Enter, double-click, and send it down. Now I actually want to show you what you have to do in 2007 or earlier. You'll have to use, in the index row number, instead of aggregate, you'll have to use small if ISNA match. And then the logical test there is that whole little bit. And then, of course, in the K for small. This formula requires Control-Shift-Enter. We have a bunch of array calculations inside the if, and no matter how you slice it, you have to use the keystroke Control, Shift, and Enter to put this formula into the cell. When you use Control, Shift, Enter, that's you telling Excel to calculate this array formula. Up in the formula bar, you can see those curly brackets at the beginning and the end. That's Excel telling you that it understood this as an array formula. And then we could copy it down. Now, the beauty of array formulas, of course, is that as soon as we change any name, it just totally updates. All right, so 1, 2, 3. I do want to look at one last example. I'm going to go over to 126 email. And the question here is extracting any emails in list 1 that are not in list 2. And my favorite method, if it doesn't have to be automatic, is simply to use advanced filter. So we're going to use ISNA match. Now, we have a slightly different situation here because it's the items in list 1 that we want to find and extract. So I'm going to say, hey, look up the first item in that list, comma, look it up within list 2, F4, comma, 0, close parentheses, close parentheses. Remember that advanced filter will take this and copy it down the column in memory. So when I enter this, click in the cell, Alt-A-Q, copy to another location, criteria range, empty cell formula, copy to, I'm going to try cell F12. When I click OK, just like that, I have the emails from column 1 that are not in column 2. Now, something very important about advanced filter that I didn't show you back on the last sheet is I'm going to put something below the extract area, and watch what happens. I'm not sure what version. It was in 2007 or 10 that this started to happen, because in earlier versions this didn't happen. If I rerun the advanced filter, it will replace everything here, but it also replaces everything below. So you don't want any important data below. If I click in here and Alt-AQ, and I'm just going to run the same one again, not changing the criteria, when I click OK, you could see that 4 disappeared. So when you run advanced filter below the extract area, that means anywhere down below, don't have anything important. Now, one last thing. This whole video is about comparing two lists and finding things that are not in a list. But what if you wanted to compare two lists and say, please only give me the ones that are in both lists? It's no problem. Solution 1, 2, and 3, all you have to do is change ISNA to ISNUMBER. Now, actually, the array formula, you have to change it to ISNUMBER. But method 1 with sort and advanced filter, you can actually just use the match. But I'm going to show you both here. ISNUMBER, now we're going to get a true only when the item is in both lists. So if I was to rerun, Alt-AQ, select copy to, and click OK, now I get only the items that are in both lists. Now, for method 1 and 2, where we used sorting and then advanced filter here, we actually only have to have match, because if the sorting one will bring the errors up to the top, but filter will see any non-zero number as true and ignore the errors. So all I have to do is have match. Now, once I've done only match, it's interested in when there's items in both lists. So I'm actually going to remove this just to prove to this. And you ready? Alt-AQ, copy to another range, and boom. So boom there. If you really are interested in both of them, use only match. Now, back over here on 1, 2, 6, we saw the array formula. And here, for the array formula, you'd have to put the ISNUMBER. But that's an awesome array formula when everything has to be automated. We saw the advanced filter, and we saw match, the essence of all three solutions, and then sort and copy paste. Wow, that was an epic video. We'll see you next video.